Time flew by, I've practiced long enough. It's time to ride. Hello future, farewell my past. Wish me your best, wish me your best, wish me.
What's going on, Raider Nation? Welcome everyone to IC Football. This is my channel and I'm here with the 2018 draft review, Oakland Raiders style. I'm usually only make videos about the Raiders because they're my favorite team, and well, all of the teams are not as good. But that doesn't mean that I will not look into other teams. If anybody has any, teams they want me to look into, or if anybody wants me to look into some players, I can do that, and I can give you my analysis of them. Here, I'm just going to be breaking down the 2018 NFL Oakland Raiders picks, specifically the first 6 picks, I think, and Azim Victor as well, because I think he's an interesting prospect. But really, what I'm going to do in this video is just show you guys why I think these guys were the picks that were chosen. Now, I don't claim to be an expert, and I'm not, some guru. I'm really just a fan that likes to do a little bit of video work and a little bit of draft review. I never really take anything too seriously, so I'm sorry if you guys don't like the way that I do my videos, or you guys would like to see more footage. I've watched the footage myself, and really I'm just kind of trying to show you guys, or tell you guys what I've seen in the footage and what I think is gonna translate to the NFL. So without further ado, here we go. Let's start this quick review, and thanks for checking in, and go Raiders. So, for the first round we drafted Kolton Miller. Kolton Miller is a prototypical offensive tackle. Now, he has played both on the left and the right. Now, he is 309 pounds, and he definitely plays more with strength than with athleticism or than with technique. Although he is very athletic for his size, he tends to use his strength a little bit more than skill. Now, in the end, he's a very big and very long offensive tackle, so he can make a lot of the plays that he needs to make simply just with his size and his strength. But the problem is when he gets into very quick, speedy pass rushers like a Von Miller, he is not going to be able to stop them a lot of times because he doesn't have the quickness to stop them, at least right off the line, and it might lead to a lot of penalties. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be what's going to happen. I'm just saying that's kind of what I see right off the bat. Now, thing is that if you watch Von Miller, he plays a lot on the right side of the line, and that's probably why I think Brandon Parker is going to be playing. So he's probably going to play on the left side, Kolton Miller, so he won't really have to deal with Von Miller, although they do switch him over the line back and forth. So we'll see. But he does not excel against quicker pass rushers. Let's just put it at that. And what you'll find with him is that he uses his leverage very well at times, particularly in the run game. He is a very, very good run blocker. That is what I've noticed again and again, is that he excels in the run game. His pass blocking, though, he can be suspect. And one of the biggest problems with him is his balance. He tends to not have the best footwork, and he gets off balance at times, specifically in pass blocking. And I think it's because when he's backing up, he doesn't quite know exactly where to put his feet to get the right leverage. Whereas quick off the line, when it's run blocking, when he's just pushing his guy forward, he can get very good leverage right off the bat, and actually can do a very good job, which is why he's better against the run. But one thing that you can point out is that he actually had a very low sack total in college football, and he was protecting Josh Rosen on his blind side. And one of the biggest things that people knock him for, is that he isn't that fluid in his motion, and that he's not consistent in technique. And that's exactly what I just stated. And it really shows in pass protection. And the main reason is because he tends to drop back, get off balance. He is in very good position, but because his feet are not in good position to give him good leverage, he tends to get beat to the inside or to the outside, and he's just left flat-footed, right? So this is something that I think can be worked on, though. It's not something that I think is necessarily flawed. Like, you can't teach size, you can't teach length, you can't teach the things that he has. You can teach the things that he lacks. So that's a big plus for this guy, and which is why I think he was drafted 15th overall. Now, I know a lot of people are mad about the pick, and I kind of was myself when I saw it. I was like, you know, I don't agree with this pick. We definitely could have gotten a better defensive player. But what you'll notice is that if you look at a guy like Kolton Miller, his upside is unbelievable. If he can be a starting tackle for the next 5 years for the Oakland Raiders, even on the left or the right side, I would prefer on the left side, and then especially if Brandon Parker pans out, then that's unbelievable. We've replaced Donald Penn, who, I mean, if Kolton Miller can start right away, I'd say we should cut Penn, save that $3-4 million, and sign Navarro Bowman. And then we can cut Derek Johnson before the season starts, and he can basically just be a veteran linebacker in training camp and through the preseason, and you know, we save that money as well, and we go in the season with Navarro Bowman as our leader on defense. I would really like that, and I don't think we'd be losing that much cutting Donald Penn. I mean, he was injured at the end of last year, and yeah, I know he started pretty much every game prior to that, but if you look at his, you know, overall ability, he's definitely lacking the, you know, the speed that he had a few years ago, and he's definitely not as productive, although he's still a great left tackle, and I don't think anybody can take anything away from Donald Penn, because he's definitely a good player. I just think that he is getting old, and we need to look at replacements, and if Kolton Miller can be that, then I don't know why we would not just go on. It's really the money thing, you know. Like, I would honestly love to see Donald Penn on our team, but if we could switch out Donald Penn for Navarro Bowman, I think that would help our team out a lot more, specifically because we signed Kolton Miller, or we drafted Kolton Miller in the first round. Now, the big thing here is that, you know, what you're going to find in this with this pick is that it was actually very valuable, and the reason is because it was not just we just took him at 10, which we were, you know, initially at number 10. We traded back to 15 with the Cardinals. This gave us a lot of accumulate more picks. We got third and the fifth round for that, and that enabled us to essentially be more capable of picking up more picks later on, like we did. We traded up to get Mo Hurst, and we were able to trade our third round pick to get Martavius Bryant, which is an excellent pickup. And our offense now gets better with 2 picks in the first round, with basically Kolton Miller and Martavius Bryant. So we get a receiver and we get a great offensive tackle. I mean, I would have liked to see us go defense, maybe Derwin James, but you know, at the end of the day, we solidified our offensive line, and we picked up another passing threat for Derek Carr. So I mean, right there, I don't think there's any problem, and I think that in the end it's going to pan out. But the only problem is that if Kolton Miller is really just a backup for Donald Penn, you know, I don't see good first round value there. Now, that's just my opinion, and maybe if he's, like I said, if he is the best left tackle in the league for the next 10 years, then whatever, you know, it's a great pick no matter what anybody says. But if he's kind of just going to sit on the bench for a year or two behind Donald Penn, you know, which is where I kind of see it happening, because if you look at what everybody's saying, you know, they're saying he's basically going to be starting at left tackle, you know, and Parker's going to be starting on the right side. So I don't see, you know, why they'd want to be pushing him to left tackle if Donald Penn is already going to be our starting left tackle. Why would they want our first round pick to be, you know, starting in a position where we already have a starter? I think that's a little awkward, and I think that there might be some writing on the wall there that maybe Penn might not be on the team at the beginning of the year, and maybe we can use that money to add to the defense. I'm just saying, let's see what happens. But anyway, long story short, I think at the end of the day, you know, when you look at Kolton Miller, you'll see that he is just a great player, and he's consistent. A lot of people, I heard a couple analysts saying he's a boomer bust pick. I don't agree with that, because where is the bust? You know what I mean? Like, if you look at his size and strength alone, he has amazing player potential. You know what I mean? But and not only that, but he played in a really good conference. You know what I mean? Like, he played in LSU. I mean, he played in a really UCLA. He played in a really good league. You know what I mean? That was Arden Key. That was from LSU. but you can't really knock him for a lot of his problems, because I think that a lot of his problems are not necessarily flaws with his game. They're flaws with his technique, and they're flaws with his coaches. His coaches have not really been teaching him properly, and that's one of the biggest problems. I'm not saying I know that for sure 100%. I'm just saying it looks like he hasn't been properly coached, and that's something that can be, rectified at the higher level. And that's something that I think a lot of people are not realizing. They're not realizing that, if you actually took this guy and made him into what he can be, and actually taught him how to use his hands, how to use his leverage a little better at times, how to, get better footwork, he can be amazing, an unbelievable player, and a steal at 15. That's just my opinion. And, when the New England Patriots were on the clock, they were showing that they wanted him. So, right there, we're showing that we have a guy that the Patriots were wanting at 22, and we got him at 15. Sure, we might have lost a little bit, but getting Martavis Bryant as well, I don't think there was any loss in value there. And I think that we ended up getting a pretty good pick in the first round. The only other thing I can say about him really is that he needs to be hitting first. He needs to be punching. You know what I mean? Like, he usually is the one to get hit rather than the one to be giving the hit. So he needs to be using his hands to hit defenders in the chest and get them off balance rather than them coming and hitting him and getting him off balance. Because that's where he lacks a lot of hand skills. And if he can learn to utilize his hands in the proper ways, I think he can be an excellent tackle in this league. Alright, so the next guy I want to talk about here is PJ Hall, our second round pick. Now, PJ Hall, for those of you who don't know, comes from Sam Houston State. He is 6'1", 310 pounds. He is basically a prototypical 3 technique, but he is essentially a force currently, like right now. He is not the kind of guy that's like, oh, we need to make this guy into something. He is something right now. He is an amazing pass rusher. He has great production at the college level. Sure, Sam Houston wasn't facing the best the best players at times, the best competition. He put in unbelievable numbers. Like, if you just look at some of these numbers that he put in, it's unbelievable. Like, 284 tackles, 86.5 tackles for loss, 42 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions. He's a defensive lineman. This guy, 14 block kicks. He puts in work on special teams. He puts in work in the pass game. He puts in work in the run game. He puts in work everywhere you need him. He is a great player. In the second round, a lot of people, he wasn't even invited to the scouting combine. Even with his production in college, even after everything he did, he wasn't even invited to the scouting combine. But at his pro day, his athleticism was off the charts. He put up unbelievable numbers, and basically proved why he was a second round pick. And in many people's minds, he can start right away. If you look at his strengths, compared to his weaknesses. Tried to carry additional weight, like spotty and lacking NFL length. Which is he's a defensive lineman. Like, this guy's, it's not like he's a tackle or, he's trying to basically block the middle, stuff the middle, stop the run, or get through and pass rush, which is what he's most effective at, is pass rushing. This guy is a pass rushing guru, and that's what we're going to need him for. What he says right here, what he lacks in height, weight, and length, he makes up for with power, quickness, and explosiveness, and his tape shows it. One thing that I noticed off his tape is a great ability to penetrate right off the snap. Right off the snap, he can get into the backfield quick. And I see the same thing in Maurice Hurst. PJ Hall is just consistently in the backfield. Now, the only problem with that is that sometimes he is a little too eager, and what I'm what I mean by that is sometimes his pass rush is too good to the point where he pushes himself out of the play because he wants to get through so much that he bursts through his gap and then he leaves his gap open for the running back to go through on the other side. You know what I mean? So a lot of times what I find is that he is such a good pass rusher that he forgets that he has to also cover his gap in the run game. So one of the things he needs to learn is to learn, how to read the quarterback better and how to read the play. If it's play action, make sure that if you're going to rush the quarterback, that you're not over pursuing and leaving your gap open for the running back to then go for a 10-yard gain. The only problem with his pass rushing game is really that he needs to be a better pursuer. You know what I mean? Like once he gets through and he breaks through his unbelievable talent, he needs to be able to pursue better. I find that he's a little slow sideline to sideline, and that even though he put up like a 4.9 or something like that for a defensive lineman, which is pretty quick, he still is very relying on his pass rush and his kind of quick feet in small bursts to kind of get through and make tackles, rather than you don't want him chasing people down in the backfield. You don't want him chasing people down off the line of scrimmage. And that's kind of like where I see his only really downfall is if he is either in open field tackling, or if he is kind of needed to fill holes in the run game, he may have problems. Mainly because I find his awareness is not what it needs to be, although he is very good. He's a very skilled player. He understands the game. His problem comes down to the fact that a lot of times he can get lost in the wash. He can just get kind of, if he doesn't beat the offensive lineman right off the block, if he's not in the backfield within the first 2 seconds of the play, a lot of times he just is stuck. You just lose him. You don't even see him. You don't even hear his name. You would never even, because he just kind of gets blocked, and the guy just holds it. And that's one of his problems. Like, he's very strong. He's very fast. But the problem is that if he gets a strong lineman that's able to stop him right off the bat, he doesn't have enough moves. He doesn't have enough quickness to then get into the backfield, or not quick enough to disrupt the play. At least he needs to be getting into the backfield immediately, which he does very consistently. So I mean, you kind of have these pros and cons that are very they're very depicting of what his main goals are, which is the pass rush. He's not a run stopper. I mean, he can play the run, but he's not a run stopper. He's not Justin Ellis. That's one of the reasons why I think the Raiders need Justin Ellis. We need to make sure, because Justin Ellis is going to be our first and second down specialist. Now, mark my words. What you're going to find in this year for the Oakland Raiders, we're going to have P.J. Hall and Maurice Hurst as our second and third down inside rushers, inside linemen. And then in first and second down, you're going to have Ellis, and you're going to have a combination of either Hall or Maurice Hurst. Probably more Maurice Hurst. And Hall and Hurst will switch off and just to keep each other fresh. Plus, you might have Vanderdoes in there as well. I'm not sure if how he's gonna be coming off injury, but either way, you're gonna have those three guys that are gonna be basically plugging in other side of Ellis on first and second down, and then for second and third down, you're gonna have for passing situations, you're gonna have Hurst and Hall, and then basically you're gonna be looking for them to get to the quarterback and to get some pressure off of Mack and Irvin on the edges, who are going to basically be trying to push from the edges while Hall and Hurst are pushing from the interior. It should be an unbelievable line. These guys just need to learn how to play more downs and how to be a more effective player overall, rather than just a pure pass rusher or just a pure run blocker. Now, Ellis is just our run, just a beast in the run game. You want him in there for every running snap. He's going to stop people. But he's also a liability in coverage. You don't want him on passing plays necessarily. Ellis is not quick enough to get to the quarterback. So, we have a good combination of defensive linemen, although I think Hurst and Hall need to be better be better taught up in the run game. They need to understand how to play gaps and how to not just rush through the line every time, especially if there's going to be like a big, gap open so that the running back can just shoot through. They need to be able to understand how to play more patiently or play more effectively if they're just pressing through the line. They need to be able to get back and recover so that they can make the stop more effectively, more consistently. And I guess that's the big thing, is more consistency. These guys with this kind of skill level, you can't teach the skill that these guys have already, especially with Hall. You can't teach his handwork, his ability to use leverage. This guy was an outside pass rusher. He was an edge rusher for a long time, so that's why he understands how to get to the quarterback. He understands how to use his hands, how to use his skill, not just his speed and his strength to get to the quarterback, although he is very good using his speed. And the other thing is he has good ball skills. This guy's made 4 interceptions. This guy can knock the ball down. He jumps up. He's very smart when it comes to reading the quarterback. That's one thing that I noticed about him when I watch tape. Hall is consistently, he's watching the quarterback. Even on the run game, he's watching the quarterback. He's looking at where the ball's going. The problem is that he gets over eager. Like I said, sometimes he does it very well. And then other games, it just seems like, I'm going to rush the quarterback and that's all I'm going to do, and I'm not going to think about how that might affect my gap, my responsibilities, So a lot of times he might just have a goal in mind instead of just thinking about his overall responsibilities. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's all about coaching. And if these guys can just have the right coaches, then they're going to be, just exceptional players at the next level. So that's really all I want to talk about, is that, PJ Hall is essentially going to be, I think, a great player, and he's going to be a great pass rusher, second and third down especially. He really needs to get better in run stopping, so I think making him kind of understand his gap responsibility is going to be the way to do that, and just to play with more patience on first and second down anyway. On third down, I want him rushing the quarterback, and I want him to get in the backfield, so I'm not really concerned with him on third down. It's more first and second downs that he needs to be kind of more aware of what is happening, especially what the offense is planning to do. Anyway, I think he's going to be a great player either way. And I mean, this guy just has unbelievable numbers in college. Like, if you look at his numbers, I think he's the best lineman coming in terms of pass rushing, besides Maurice Hurst. So that's one thing. Anyway, thanks guys. On to the next one. Alright guys, on to our third round pick, Brandon Parker. Now, a lot of people are unhappy that we traded up for Brandon Parker. I agree with that. I don't necessarily think we needed to trade up to get him in the first pick of the third round, but I do like him. I like his tape. I especially like his high school tape. If you go watch his high school tape, this guy is a beast in high school. Now, I'm not saying that he's a beast in college, although he definitely was a great player. It's kind of like PJ Hall. He wasn't facing the best talent, which is why I think a lot of people have him lower than they, because his production is great. Like, his production's unbelievable. Like, I mean, this guy basically played, 48 games, started every game in college, and he never missed a start, and he never gave up a sack in 4 seasons. Think about that for a second. That's unbelievable. Now, I do agree that you have to look at different things. Like I said, like, they had a rushing attack, one of the best rushing attacks, 3 straight seasons, which maybe made it easier for him. And he had having a really good teammates also. But think about the Oakland Raiders line. Like, we have some of the best guards, some of the best talent in an offensive line in Oakland. So right there, you can see that it might not be that big of a transition for him to go from this, but although the talent is going to be the biggest difference. But I don't think he's going to be a starter, which is where it's interesting, because right now they have him starting at right tackle and they have Colton Miller starting at left tackle, which is interesting because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure how this takes into account Donald Penn, and if Donald Penn is going to be starting, then I'm not sure what's going to be happening with Brandon Parker. But for right now, I think he's going to be a swing tackle. Like, a lot of people think that he's not going to be starter. I think that he can start. I think that he's actually a very good player in terms of his skill. Really, the biggest problem with him is he needs to understand how to use leverage. He needs to understand how to play with skill rather than size. He uses his size way too often. Now, I think he has really good technique I think he has better footwork than Colton Miller even. But he needs to learn how to use his frame better. So basically, one of the biggest things about him, and I actually think he uses his hands well. Like he says, well-timed punches can distract back. And that's one of those big things, is that like this is something I wish Colton Miller did a lot more of. This is something that he does much better than Colton Miller. This is something that you need to do to get good defensive linemen off of you, to get good edge rushers to disrupt them for even just a slight half a second can be so important. And this is why I think that Brandon Parker is actually a really good player, a really good tackle at the next level. The biggest thing about him is he needs to learn how to use his hands properly, how to use his length properly. He needs to understand how to be better, efficient right off the line. He needs to understand where, what linemen are trying to do to him. You know what I mean? So his biggest thing is that he needs to understand how to deal with people that are quick and that have good hand skills, that can block his hands away, because he's really good if he can hit you quick and be the first to deliver the hit, which he does quite often. But unlike Colton Miller, he doesn't have the ability to recover in the same way. So if he gets beaten quick, he doesn't recover in the same way that a Colton Miller does, where Colton Miller, he kind of understands the lanes, so he understands where he needs to be more often. Now, I'm not saying he's always making the play, but he understands where he kind of needs to be, whereas Brandon Parker is a little more trying to stop you right off the line. And because he is a little less athletic than a Colton Miller, he needs to rely more on his leverage and his kind of size to stop you right then and there, instead of being quick to then backpedal and still be able to stop you from getting them to the quarterback. This is something that Brandon Parker needs to work on, which is why he might not be a starter, and which is why if Donald Penn stays on the team and stays at left tackle, Colton Miller will probably be the starting right tackle, and Brandon Parker will probably not be a starter. And this is something that I find interesting. So it's like, why would you want to take a third-round pick that is not going to be a starter? That's just my thought process. Now, what I would like to point out, though, is that I actually really like his tape. Like I said, his high school tape is exceptional, unbelievable. Now, the thing about him is he's actually a really good pass blocker. He understands how to make the right stops in the game, and he can actually be very effective. But like I said, he needs to understand how to be better positioned, especially after he gets beat off the line. If he can stop you on the line, he's basically gonna win every time, 9 times out of 10. But if you beat him off the line, if like a Von Miller is quick to beat him off the line and he can get around him real quick, he doesn't have the ability to recover as quickly as Colton Miller would, and that is gonna hurt him. It's gonna hurt him because he's gonna end up getting a lot of penalties, like he did in the Senior Bowl. You see 2 penalties that he was called on in the Senior Bowl, one for that exact reason. An edge rusher was basically just able to get right around him, right off the snap, and he held him and led to a penalty. Now that penalty was declined, but still, it was a penalty. And that's one thing that problem. Now, he's actually one of the least penalized tackles in college football, so I don't think that's a major concern, but I do think it's there. And it's really just because he's going to be dealing with a lot better talent at the NFL level and a lot quicker pass rushers. So the other thing, the last thing I want to say about him is that he needs to be more consistent, and he really needs to learn how to act at the second level. A lot of times, like if you're making those second level blocks, like he needs to keep blocking people. If I find a lot of times when he gets to the second level, he might make like one block, and then he gets to the second level and he's kind of just running. He doesn't know who he's blocking or what he should be doing, and he needs to find the ball and keep blocking. Like, find the next guy. You know, just who am I hitting now? Who do I need to take out now? You need to just be more effective at finding the next guy and making blocks at the next level. That's where he really needs to learn how to read the play and understand where his guys are going so he can get in front of them. And that's kind of it's just about play. It's just about, you know, timing, and it's just about understanding how the game works. So it's really just time. It's really just time and experience that allows that to happen. So I don't think that's something that, you know, is a big problem. It's just something that I notice in him, and that he really can be lost sometimes when he gets, you know, he might, after he makes the first block and then gets into the second level, particularly if, you know, the running back is still trying to make a play, he doesn't necessarily know where to go to be the most effective at the second level. That's pretty much all I have to say about Brandon Parker. Like I said, I think that it might have been a bit of a reach to trade up to get him where we did, but I definitely think he's going to be a good player in the next few years for the Oakland Raiders. He might not be a starter right off the bat, and if he is a starter right off the bat, he'll be a right tackle, and we'll cut Donald Penn. That's the only way I see him starting. If not, he'll be Vidal Alexander or like a John Feliciano and just kind of be a swing, what was it? Marshall Newhouse last year, who I think he's better than Marshall Newhouse. So there's that. He's definitely younger and definitely, I think, wants to play better. Anyway, and I think he will. So that's that. Alrighty, now on to our third round draft pick, Arden Key. Now, one thing I want to point out about Arden Key is that if he were to be drafted last year, he would have been a top 10 pick. That's almost unanimous. Now, a big thing about him is that in 2017, he ended up having about a 4-month hiatus from football, in which a lot of people were not sure if he was going to come back, and in which he had shoulder surgery. It was a little bit iffy, and there's a lot of off the field concerns with Arden. His big thing is that a lot of people are not sure if he wants to play football, and I think that's kind of silly because, you know, when you're in college, a lot of these kids don't realize what it's like. They don't realize what it's going to be like once they get into the NFL, once they get offered millions of dollars, once they kind of see, even if they see their kind of the millions they lose because of the off the field issues, because of the way that they kind of weren't taking it, you know, as serious as they should have been at the college level. Now, this is, I think, something that you can bring immediately to Arden Key. One thing I want to point out here is that a lot of people are worried that, you know, he might have some smoking weed issues. He had turned himself in to marijuana rehab back in late 2016, early 2017, I think. So, I mean, immediately you see that there are a lot of off-the-field concerns. Now, what I would like to, you know, point out there is that if he's turning himself into rehab, if he's kind of, and like with the 4-month hiatus, he got shoulder surgery, and even his dad said that like he had to get himself centered and right, because at the end of, you got to realize, at the end of the 2016 season, a lot of people were saying this guy's a top 10 pick. This guy's going first round, top 10. This guy's, you know, an amazing athlete. He's the best pass rusher in the draft. You know, that puts a lot of pressure on you know, 18, 19-year-old kid. You know what I mean? To then go and perform the same as you did. You know what I mean? Or 20-year-old. I'm not sure exactly how old he is. But, you know, let's just say this. Arden Key, if he plays to the level that he played in 2016, even if he gets to 75%, 80%, he's the first round pick. And that, to get him in the third round, after the third round, I think is a great step. Now, you know, 6'5", 238 pounds, 33-inch and a half inch arms, 10-inch hands, great vertical, quick, very quick. One of the things you'll realize about him is that, you know, he is a pass rusher. A prototypical pass rusher, edge rusher. He's going to get to the quarterback. That is his job. Now, is he a liability in the run game? Absolutely. Do you want him out there on first down? Not often. I would say no. I'd rather have Urban and Mac on first and second down, and maybe bring him in on third down later in the game, start to cycle him in, get him kind of give the other guys a little bit of a break, get them a breather, and bring his pass rushing ability in on third down when they need to get in the backfield. I think that's where he's going to be used. He's long-limbed, he's a great athlete, he understands how to swim, underneath people, he understands how to spin moves to get by people. He's very quick, he's very, very athletic, he's very agile, he gets through people, he gets through blocks, he gets into that. He will probably be one of the best pass rushing defensive ends in this draft, hands down. Is that all he'll be? He might be. And if he gets 6, 7, 8 sacks this year, that's unbelievable. That's all you really want. Even if he doesn't do anything in the run game, if that's all he does, 7 or 8 sacks is all you want. A lot of things about him. A lot of people say that once he came back from his shoulder surgery, he gained a little bit of weight, and when he gained this weight, it basically made it so that he wasn't able to be as effective as a passer. It's kind of funny because he ended up being better against the run once he put on some extra weight, once he was up around 250, 255, or maybe even high 240s. But once he was able to bring that back down pro day and Senior Bowl, you see that he was, again, a much better passer. So it's really all about how much weight he has in terms of how effective he's going to be at pass rushing position. And you want to see him a little leaner to be a more effective pass rusher, but I think that's going to happen because what you got to realize is that in college football, these kids don't necessarily realize what they're doing. And they don't realize how important it is to be at a certain weight or to put in a certain amount of work at this position in order for you to understand how to use your hands better, or understand how to swim better, or understand how to use leverage better. These are all things that can be taught, and Arden Key has the abilities already. He doesn't need to be taught a lot of things. His biggest thing is he just needs to be able to stay on the field. And one of the things that I think is interesting about him is that if you look at kind of the first stages of the plan that they have for Arden Key, what you'll find is that Bruce Irvin has already came in and has been a mentor and is willing to take on this player as a kind of underling and willing to bring him under his wing, show him the ropes, be kind of the leader that he needs in the locker room, show him how it is to be done, how to stay away from the weed, how to stay away from the alcohol, how to stay away from all of the off the field problems, how to keep himself at a good weight, how to hit the weight room, how to just keep his head down and go at it. You know what I mean? And if he can do that to 80 to 90% and become the player that he was in 2016, then this is an unbelievable draft. This is an unbelievable pick, Raiders. I don't think you guys realize how good of a pick this is going to be if he can be what he was in 2016. And I think he can be. Because one of the things you got to realize is that when you come off an injury, yeah, sure, you're going to put on weight. You're going to be off the field. You're going to be laying on your ass. You're not going to be able to do anything. You might be working out a little bit, but if you can't lift, if you can't, put in the work that you do to build the muscle, you're going to then, either put on some pounds because you're going to be eating too much and not working it out, or you're going to be getting more fat than muscle, which is going to lead you to be not as good of an athlete. So all this has to do with how much work you're able to put in, how much you're able to work out, how much you're able to get out there and go and put in the work on the field. If you're not able to do that for 4 months, then yeah, you're going to lose some muscle and some ability. But that can be brought back once you play with more skill and more time and more experience. Really all he needs is to get an effective weight room program and to be brought under the right leadership. So with Bruce Irvin taking him under his wing, showing him this is going to be kind of where you need to be in the NFL, this is kind of how you need to play and how you need to deal with your off the field issues, I think it might work. And don't get me wrong, like Bruce Irvin was just ranked, in the top 80s of the top 100 players last year. So Bruce Irvin is a great player and a guy that Arden Key looks up to. One of the interesting things that I want to point out, actually, with Brandon Parker, the guy before, is when if you go back and look to on his pro day in the draft Bible, he had stated that like one of his best visits was from John Gruden, and he always was a Buccaneers fan, so he always loved John Gruden, and that's one of the reasons why he thought it was such an amazing visit, and he was starstruck to meet John Gruden. And I think, led towards the decision of why we drafted Brandon Parker, might have had a small part to play. But with Arden Key, I think one of the things that a lot of people need to realize is that he is the best pass rusher, pure pass rusher in this draft. If you eliminate all the off the field concerns, if you eliminate all of the issues with his weight, he is the best pass rusher in this draft. And like I said, hit the weight room, get a good kind of head on your shoulders with a good leader in the locker room and off the field, like Bruce Irvin. Hey, I think we got a steal here, Raiders, and I think we're going to see some greatness out of this guy this year in the pass rushing game. So before I talk about Nick Nelson, I just want to mention that if Arden Key can be better coached and learn how to better set the edge and be more aware of his gap responsibilities in the run game, then he can actually be a pretty effective pass rusher and run stopper. Now, he's always going to be a better pass rusher, and I would want him to be a better pass rusher at 240. If he can maintain that weight and understand how to set the edge and maintain his gap responsibilities, I think he can be just an overall great player. Now, will that happen? I don't know, but either way, I think he's going to be a great pass rusher, at least this season. So on to our 4th round pick, Nick Nelson. Now, Nick Nelson actually injured his meniscus. He tore his meniscus early in April, or at least mid-April, working out for the Detroit Lions. Now, he was projected to be a 3rd or 4th round pick prior to his tearing his meniscus. And we still got him in the 4th round, but it was, mid 4th round, and I think it was pretty decent value, and especially because he's only projected to miss 3 to 4 months. Now, from the time of the injury, that's about mid-April, he should be back late July, early August. Now, that's not bad, considering that, a lot of these teams probably took him off their board thinking, oh, he's injured, he's not going to play this year, but if he's going to get into the end of training camp, maybe even all of training camp, and be able to play some preseason, I think that's, the thing about him is that he actually is a very smart player. He understands what he's doing. He understands the game. He's actually a very good player with 87 tackles over 2 years. That was in Hawaii. And then he transferred to Wisconsin. So that was against weaker opponents. But after he went to Wisconsin, he had 35 tackles, 1 for loss, and 25 pass deflections last year. Now, 21 pass deflections was actually the most in college football. And like I said, he earned consensus first team all Big Ten honors and was awarded Conference Player of the Week November 20th. So you can clearly see that he's actually a very good prospect in terms of, I would say, a nickel corner. He's a prototypical nickel corner, and he plays actually very well at that position. Now, he can play the outside too, but I think the Raiders are going to have him playing the inside, where TJ Carey was playing last year, or prior to that, we had a bunch of different guys. Nobody really of any real note that was ever a nickel corner recently. Anyway, obviously, if you start going back, you can get some serious guys, but recently, there's not a lot of talent. We haven't had a lot of talent in our nickel corner position. And the thing about Nick Nelson that I'll bring up almost right off the bat is that he is really, really skilled at breaking up passes. He understands how to break passes up consistently, and not just consistently, but he knows how to what they call strip and pull. So he understands how to get his hands into the middle of the opponent's chest and rip the ball up. He understands where to put his hands as the ball is coming in, and as the catch is being made, he knows how to get his hands in and rip the ball out. He's very good at breaking up all kinds of quick, short, long. No matter where he is, if he's contesting the ball, I'd say he has the better chance of knocking it away than the offensive player has of catching it. Now, with that being said, he has 0 interceptions throughout his college career. 0. That means that although he has great ball awareness and great ball skill when it comes to ripping and deflecting, he has very, very minimal skill when it comes to intercepting and actually picking off the ball. He's not, his hands, like a lot of times he's had like easy interceptions and he drops them. In many cases, he just can't catch the ball. Now, one thing that I think kind of, what I like to kind of talk about is that if you look at the Oakland Raiders, their cornerbacks in the past couple years, David Amerson, TJ Carey, Sean Smith, they weren't very good. Not only were they not very good, but they weren't very good at breaking up passes. To be honest with you, I saw so many penalties. I saw so many times when they were just giving up, huge plays and making tackles, which, I'm okay with making tackles, but, I always say if your cornerbacks or your safeties have a lot of tackles, it's a bad thing. And it's a bad thing because they're giving up way too many passes, and they should be having more passes defended than they should be having tackles, don't you think? Because, like look at Nick Nelson's numbers. I mean, like I was saying before, if you look at his numbers, he has 21 pass deflections for 35 tackles. Now that's a pretty decent number. He has almost more than half the amount of passes deflected than he has tackles, which means that he's breaking up the pass almost half as many times as he's making a tackle. And a lot of the tackles might just be running backs or short screen passes, which he's not he doesn't have any chance of breaking up the pass, but he has still making the tackle. So like I said, he led 2017 with 21 passes defended and has 42 for his career, which means that he's just got better in his last year, and he's just been getting better every year at breaking up passes. Now, one of the things that people kind of knock him for is that they say that he needs to learn how to trust his technique. Now, that's one of the things I hear again and again and again, and it's almost like he knows exactly what he needs to do, but a lot of times he's too hesitant to actually do it because he maybe doesn't trust his other corners to make the plays that they need to make, so he's unsure whether he should bite on the under routes rather than or just cover the outside. And a lot of times I think that he needs to be looked at more as a nickel cornerback in the sense that he can just play his role. He doesn't need to worry about anybody else. He just needs to cover the middle of the field and cover the crossing routes and break up passes. And I think he's going to be exceptional at that role. So one of the things I think that's a good thing is that he's not going to be asked to do too much right off the bat. He's going to be asked to just come in, play the corner nickel role, and simply cover the crossing routes and cover the middle of the field. And I think that, if Garyon Conley can play this year, if he can get healthy, then I think him, Rashawn Melvin, and Nick Nelson are an exceptional 3 kind of corner combo. Melvin and Conley on the outsides, and having Nick Nelson in the middle is not a bad kind of way to look at your cornerback, your backfield. Now I think that Nick Nelson really needs to be kind of seen as also a good blitzer. He can blitz the quarterback. He can get to the quarterback. One of the things about him is that he is not as maybe as fully techniqued or as fully understanding technique like some other players are, but he understands how to get to the football. That's the thing. He might give up position on the field. He may give maybe he doesn't cover a crossing route the proper way, but he understands how to then get to the football. I've seen plays where he's 10 yards away from the ball, and by the time the ball gets to the receiver, he's there knocking the ball out of the receiver's hands. So he might give up position sometimes, but he has recovery and speed and skill on the ball to then go and knock it out. Now, like I said, he's not going to be intercepting the ball. He's not going to go and jump in front of the route and jump the route and intercept it, but he will get there and knock it out. And, you know, he's not just going to look to tackle. That's the thing. Like, a lot of guys I found, especially with Oakland, a lot of their cornerbacks and a lot of our defensive backs, they're just looking to tackle. They're not looking to knock the ball out. They're not looking to make a play on the ball. They're just looking to tackle the guy. They're happy if they get a tackle, you know. But if they're throwing 20-yard, you know, if it's 20-yard plays, if it's, you know, even 10-yard plays, if you're giving up first down, I don't want to see just a tackle. I want to see you rip the ball. I want to see you either get a fumble or you break that pass up so that's an incompletion. That's what I want to see. Garyon Conley is really good at that, actually. He did really well at college. I think he can bring it to the next level. I just hope Nick Nelson does as well. I don't think there's really a question, maybe how well he comes back from injury, but I think overall he's going to be an excellent corner at the nickel position. If he ever plays more than that, we'll see. I think at first, though, he is going to be an exceptional player. He just needs to maybe work on his ball skills a little bit more and work on actually intercepting the ball rather than just knocking it away. But either way, I think he's going to be an upgrade on anything we've had before. Moving on to interior defensive lineman Maurice Hurst, picked the third pick in the 5th round by the Oakland Raiders. Maurice Hurst is 6'1", 292 pounds, 32-inch arms. He is my favorite player in college football this year, and he was my #1 pick for the Oakland Raiders. Now, I thought we should have taken him in either late 1st or early 2nd round. That's how good of a player I thought he was. And the reason I thought that was because of the wonderful things he does. If you watch this guy on tape consistently, he's in the backfield. Consistently, he's getting to quarterbacks. He might not always be getting sacks, but he's consistently pressuring quarterbacks to make bad throws, to make off, balance throws, and he's constantly causing disruption, no matter where he is. Can he be a liability in the run game? Sometimes. And that's, probably his biggest problem is that a lot of times he's emphasizing, or I should say over eager to get into the backfield, and because of that sometimes he can leave his gap open for the running back to just shoot through. Once he kind of beats his lineman, he'll beat the tackle, do like a quick swim move and get by, but then he doesn't realize that by getting by his tackle, he's left his gap open for the running back to then shoot through for a 10-yard gain. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that, we'll see happen consistently, because I think that Justin Ellis is going to be our run-stopping interior lineman, and if you put a guy like, Hurst or a guy like Hall with Ellis, I think you'll have a much more effective interior line. Because Ellis is basically a run-stopping beast. That's what he's there for. That's his role. He's not going to be there to get in the backfield. That's not what Ellis's job is. That's why Hurst and Hall are going to be our 2nd and 3rd down linemen. They're going to be getting to the quarterback, and they're going to be pressuring him to either, basically leave the edges open for Mac and for Irvin or Key to then get in and get to the quarterback. He's going to be consistently putting enough pressure that forces the quarterback to the outside and then gets a sack for Mac or for Irvin, which is what was happening in college football. Is you'll notice that like Mac, Hurst might not be always getting the sacks. He might not be always getting the stats that you want to see, but he has just an unbelievable numbers when it comes to percentages in terms of, like, for instance, he had 31 run stops and 49 total quarterback pressures in 2017. So he 49 times, 50 times, he is creating disruption, and he is ensuring that the pass is off balance or is incomplete. Now, this is something that the Raiders need to improve upon. We need to improve upon our interior linemen disrupting the pass. Now, With a guy like Hurst, it's basically a no-brainer. That's what he does, and that's what he does well. So, did we improve upon this aspect of our game? Absolutely. And not only that, but one thing I noticed about Maurice Hurst is that after he has great penetration, he also has the ability to create problems in the run game, but he needs to be taught about how to better cover. Now, when I say cover, I mean he needs to understand how to read the play. He needs to understand how to understand what is the quarterback is trying to do to him, what the running back is trying to do, and where they're trying to go with the football. If he can understand that a little bit more efficiently, he will be an outstanding player. You see him on some plays that he is a little more patient, specifically on like first and second. If he's on first and second down, he'll watch the quarterback, and this is great. You want to see this out of linemen. Now, sometimes it's not easy because you have you're trying to block your guy or you're trying to get through your guy, but a lot of times he'll just kind of sit back and watch where the play is going, and as soon as he sees what way the running back is bursting to, whether the left or the right, he'll cut that way. He'll do a quick, he has this great rip move where he grabs linemen and he throws them down. It's just wonderful to see that kind of hands and that kind of ability, and he basically just throws guys out of the way. Now, I would want to see this more efficiently and done more consistently on the run blocking side of things. Now, like I said, I don't think he needs help in pass. I think his pass rushing is an NFL level. I absolutely think that he is ready right now to be an effective NFL pass rusher. But I do think he'll be a liability in the run game until he can control his kind of awareness and his ability to run down, like pursue the play and to read the play. And these are things that I think will just help with better technique and better kind of an overall understanding of the game, which comes with experience, which comes with better coaching. I definitely think that he will improve in that area. And with a guy like Justin Ellis on his left or right side, wherever he he's going to be, he doesn't really have to worry too much about guys getting through because Ellis is just such a beast in the middle that he can cover those gaps, at least to a somewhat extent, or Mac, or Irvin on the side. He has help. He's not going to be left on his own, whereas a lot of times, like on the Michigan line, he was the best player on the Michigan defensive line, and a lot of times he had to make the play, and he did make the play. So you kind of have to take that into account. This guy's not coming into a Raiders defensive line that is hurting for talent. It's actually a Raiders defensive line that has an unbelievable amount of talent now. So if he just kind of works with that talent and doesn't try to do too much, I think that he is going to be kind of the perfect piece for that line. Now, one of the things that I think he needs to work on is if he doesn't win the initial battle, like if you see here, he has disruptive initial quickness when ball is snapped. He does. He has unbelievable quickness, and his initial kind of attack is exceptional. He can get into the backfield before people even understand what's going on. Linemen will be looking around like, what? Where did he go? And he's already in the backfield. He's already on the quarterback. He can do that consistently, and he does it better than any other player in college football. The problem with that, though, is that because he kind of has that ability, he tends to then get lost. Like, for instance, here it says goes head first into initial contact and loses sight of ball. So he tries so hard to beat his guy off the line that he then is out of position, and he's either way in the backfield and the play is now, the running back's now on the other side of the line of scrimmage and he's making like a plus play, or the quarterback is kind of able to make a quick throw because he kind of isn't reading where the play is going. And that's kind of something that, it's not really his fault a lot of times because he has a specific role. And as long as he's doing his role, then, you can't blame him for the defense being bad, for instance. But you can blame him for not fully understanding his role. and not filling his gap every time, and maybe being a little too over eager to get into the backfield rather than to just make the kind of stuff on the line of scrimmage, right? To kind of snuff the cornerback or the running back at the line of scrimmage. So in many senses, I think that it's really just a teaching game with Hurst and a patience game, and one that I think is going to just get better with time. And he's not going to be the kind of guy that, is going to be some boom or bust. He is an exceptional player right off the bat. Even if just a pass rusher, he is, I'd say, one of the best we've seen in the past. Like a lot of people are comparing him to Aaron Donald. They say he's the next Aaron Donald. I don't necessarily think that is going to be the case, because Aaron Donald is such a phenomenal player. But I think we can, if we see 80 or 90% of that, which I think is very possible, then he's a Pro Bowler, no matter how you look at it. And I think, upwards of 7 or 8 sacks is what we're going to see out of him this year. And if he does that, then I think it's incredible. And to get him in the 5th round, I mean, this is just the steal of the draft, in my opinion. And this pick is going to be probably the pick that everybody goes back to and just says, man, how did this guy fall to the 5th round? And when they see what he does for the Oakland Raiders this year, people are going to just be kicking themselves for letting this guy fall to where he did. Now, what I want to just kind of go over here is that if you kind of think about Mo Hurst as a prototypical 3 technique, you'll see that, he's not just a one-trick pony in one way to look at it. He has so many different ways to beat guys, whether with his speed, whether with his hands, even with his strength, he can beat guys. Now, when he uses his strength, he's using more leverage and getting under guys to beat them rather than just being stronger than them, because a lot of times he's not stronger than them, because like I said, he is a little undersized. But I don't think that's a problem, and I don't think it is going to be a problem. See, and this is the biggest problem that a lot of people have against him, is that they say that he doesn't give 100% on every play, and that there's times when he looks like he's kind of giving up. And I kind of agree and I kind of don't agree. Like I said, you kind of have to read the play, and a lot of times he kind of just gets lost in blocks, and he kind of gets maybe held by, or I shouldn't say held, but like bogged down by a stronger defender, or I should say offensive lineman. But at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10 he's getting into the backfield. You know what I mean? Or maybe 8 times out of 10 he's getting into the backfield. And then the two other times he's getting completely washed away by some really strong offensive tackle that completely kind of gets him off the line of scrimmage. Now, I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, a guy that is going to get into the backfield consistently, you shouldn't worry about him missing a few plays or maybe, getting lost in the wash on a few plays, because that happens. Sometimes guys get double teamed. Sometimes guys just get caught up in the wrong kind of read of the play. I think that with Maurice Hurst, we've seen consistently in college football that he can be an unbelievable talent, both pass rushing and run stopping, although he needs better help on the line to be a good run stopper, which is why I think pairing him with a Justin Ellis, Jellybean Ellis, you'll see just an unbelievable duo there. So I don't think that he's even going to be a liability in the run game, although a lot of people are saying he might be. So let's see where that goes. I think he's the steal of the draft. Either way, I might do one more breakdown of Azeem Victor, because I kind of want to talk about a few things. He's kind of another question mark. Maurice Hurst, the reason he's a question mark is because of his medical condition. It really isn't because of his on-the-field thing, and he doesn't have any other off-the-field concerns other than his health. So, I mean, he's already been cleared by numerous doctors. Gruden says he's good to go. I mean, I don't know what more you want from the guy. The guy wants to play football. He wants to be a competitor. He wants to win in the NFL. And I think he's gonna. Let's just see. For the last few minutes here, I'm just going to break down the final 3 picks. Azeem Victor, Johnny Townsend, and wide receiver Marcel Aitman. Now, all of these players, when you're looking at 6th, 7th round guys, you're usually talking about guys that are not making the team. They're guys that are going to be practice squad, probably cut before the season starts. Now, I don't necessarily think that these guys are going to be like incredibly impactful players, but I also think that they are going to be on the team. Now, a guy like Johnny Townsend, the punter we drafted in either the 6th or 7th, I think it was actually the 5th round, because he was actually before Azeem Victor. Yeah, so late 5th round we drafted Johnny Townsend, and he's going to be our starting punter. I mean, after we cut Marquette King, I don't see any other option but to start Johnny Townsend, who was the best, I'd say the top college football kicker. He had the most kicks drop in between the 10-yard line, so he pinned basically opposing teams deep every time, with the highest efficiency rate, if you want to get technical. So either way you look at it, our late 5th round pick is a starting player, and now he's a punter, so I mean, it is what it is, but he's a starter, so that's a decent for 5th round value. Now, when you look at Azeem Victor in the 6th round, I want to mention a few things about this guy. Now, this guy, it's really funny because he's actually from Compton. That's not what's funny about it, but it's funny that he's coming to Oakland, and he's not too far from home, but hopefully that is also not a distraction. But the thing about him that's interesting is that him and Key kind of have the same issues. And when I say that, what I mean is that there's a lot of questions about whether Azeem Victor truly wants to play football, and about kind of his overall passion for the game. Not just passion for the game, but passion to keep himself in shape and to keep himself in kind of a good position off the field in order for him to keep his head in the game. And that's one thing I think that a lot of people are kind of talking about, because when you talk about his height, his weight, he's 240, 6'2", 240 pounds. He's actually good size, good height. He's decently fast. He's not the most, he's not the quickest by any means, but he's a decent he's decent speed middle linebacker. What he's really good at is run stopping. He's a really good run stopping middle linebacker, and I actually think that we need a good run stopping middle linebacker. I mean, I like Derek Johnson, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to be our, run stopping middle linebacker. I mean, we need a young guy. I mean, Derek Johnson is going to be the teacher. No, he's going to be the leader, sure. But is he going to be able to play all 16 games? Is he going to be able to play every snap and hit these young running backs consistently? I don't necessarily think so. And unless we're able to get Bowman back, like I had mentioned earlier, I think that Azeem Victor is actually going to have to play a larger role than a lot of people think. And the major reason for that is because he is a great run-stopping player. Like, I mean, this is just a scouting report from Bleacher Report. But if you look at, one of the major things it says, you know what I mean? It's basically like a true downhill thumper who attacked the run game. You know what I mean? Like, he's an aggressive player who isn't afraid to poke his nose into traffic and stuff the run. I mean, there's a lot of good things that you see in his tape. Now, the major thing about him, like I said, along with Arden Key, is that if this was 2016, he would have been drafted probably in the 2nd round, or at least high 3rd round. He would have been a much more coveted player than he is going in this year's draft, mainly because his 2017 year was marred with injury, was marred with off-the-field concerns, was basically just a really crappy year for Azeem Now, do I think that those are all things that he can't deal with? No, not at all. And I mean, when you look at kind of his negatives that is brought out of this, he broke his leg in 2016, almost the same as with Arden Key with his shoulder injury. He was out, couldn't play for a while. He got suspended after a DUI arrest in 2017 as well. He only started 5 games. I mean, you could kind of look at that two ways, and you could say, I kind of have a lot more sympathy for players that get injured. Now, I don't have sympathy for players that just go out and do dumb shit off the field and don't, keep themselves in a good kind of athletic presence and keep their mind healthy and keep their body healthy while they're off the field, while they're injured. You need to be able to, stay going in the weight room and stay consistently keeping yourself kind of in the game while you're off the field. You know what I mean? You need to be able to do that. Being an NFL player, or being a college player that wants to be an NFL player, you should be able to do those things. But do I blame players for getting injured and then maybe doing things they shouldn't do off the field? I mean, it's rough because it's not like he's like taking coke or like some, it's not like he's shooting heroin or like, he's drinking and getting a DUI. I mean, like, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning drinking. I don't even drink myself. I think anybody that drives while under the influence is really stupid, and especially a guy that, is looking at a future in the NFL and is going to be scrutinized like the way that college football players are that are looking to go to the NFL. I don't think that it's necessarily a great decision, and like I said, like, even his coaches are not vouching for him. So I think that right there you see some really high, like, kind of red flags. But one thing I want to bring up is that, at best, and let's say, Azim is a middle-of-the-defense enforcer who plays the game with a rare combination of physicality, mental astuteness, and barely controlled fury. You know what I mean? This guy is a top-level linebacker when he's right in the head and when he's right on the field. This guy is a player, and like I said, he is a back-of-the-draft linebacker who has starter-level upside, but the odds are 50-50. And what the odds are is, can you get his head in the game? Can you make sure that he is not being kind of sucked back into the DUIs and the kind of lackadaisical off-the-field issues that you see with not working out, with not keeping your head in the playbook and in the weight room to keep yourself in shape? These are things that I think are questions, but again, I'll go back to the same thing I said with Arden Key. I think it's also the fact that these kids don't realize the amount of integrity that, or I should say, the amount of scrutiny that they're under, and the amount of kind of pressure they're under as well. We need to look at it from both ways, you know what I mean? Now, do I think that that's kind of a red flag? Like, he won't be able to handle the success of the NFL, and he's going to be under so pressure that he's going to be a drinker, and he's going to kind of not show his full potential on the field? It could be. It could very well be. But then again, it's a 6th round pick. And like I said, if this guy can get his head clean and get his kind of off the field concerns gone, then he could be a great player. And one of the things I think that shows that he can be a great player is the fact that he has great instincts. You know what I mean? Like, if you watch him in his play, he actually understands a lot more than many other linebackers at his positions. He understands a lot about the game. He can move to the ball very quickly. The biggest problem with him is that he doesn't consistently play to that level. And many times you'll find that he is a liability when it comes to covering, but he is by no means a bad coverage player. And that's kind of like the issue, is that he struggles in man coverage more than he struggles in zone coverage, and it's because he doesn't have the quickness to keep up with some of the receivers he has to cover. So it's really just against quick receivers that he'll get beat, and it's really he needs to be playing zone. And I think that with the Raiders, you're going to see he's not going to be asked to do a lot of coverage. I think that he's going to be a run-stopping linebacker, maybe a first down linebacker. That's it. Then a Nicholas Morrow will come in and play as our coverage linebacker, and maybe Derek Johnson, depending on his health. Nicholas Morrow is actually a very, very good coverage linebacker. I don't necessarily like him in the run game, but he's actually ranked as a top 20 or a top 30 middle linebacker against the pass. So that's decent, you know. I don't mind. And I kind of like I really liked Corey James, and I didn't really understand why they cut him. But once I realized that Nicholas Morrow was ranked so high against the pass, I kind of understood why they did. They need a guy that can play against the pass, and then if Victor can stop the run, then I think that it might be a good 1-2 combination at middle linebacker, with Derek Johnson as kind of the starter and kind of, you know, veteran that will basically play every down if he's healthy. But once it gets later in the game, or once he kind of gets hit a few times and isn't able to play 100%, you'll see these guys starting to come in and play more in either later on in the season or kind of later on in games. And I think, like I said, Victor will be the run-stopping linebacker, and you'll have a guy like Nicholas Morrow come in as being the pass coverage linebacker. So the last guy that I want to talk about real quick is Marcel Aitman. Now, I don't have any stats here for him or any things I can pull it up, but I just want to mention one or two things. And one of the major things I want to mention about him is that Marcel Aitman is very tall, and not only is he very tall, but he is exceptionally good at contesting balls in the air. He is basically, I would say, Michael Crabtree is basically my comparison. That's who I think he looks like. When I look at him on tape, I'm like, man, this guy's huge. He's tall, he's 6'5", 216 pounds, 32-inch arms, you know, almost 33-inch arms, runs a 4.62. I mean, really, in the 7th round, I don't see, you know, a lot of downfalls to this guy. Even if he's our fifth wide receiver, and he maybe doesn't make the team, I think he will, and I think he's going to be basically your Michael Crabtree, your end zone threat. Now the problem is that we have too many wide receivers. We're either going to have to get rid of Johnny Holden, or we're going to have to get rid of Seth Roberts to make room for Marcel Aitman, and I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen, because I do think that Johnny Holden is a good deep threat with Martavius Bryant. Jordy Nelson can also be our kind of end zone threat, so I don't know if they want to bring in Marcel Aitman as the 5th wide receiver, or as a 6th wide receiver, I should say. If we do bring 6 wide receivers, I think he will be one of them. Ryan Schweitzer, I don't know. I don't like Schweitzer as much as some other people do, especially John Gruden. He seems to be pretty high on Schweitzer, I don't know what his name is, how to say it fully, that we got from the Cowboys. I don't know. I think Aitman's a better end zone threat than Schweitzer is, but other than that, I really don't know. I don't think Aitman fully understands how to run routes the way that I would want him to be like an every down player in the NFL. I think that he's really just a 3rd down kind of threat and end zone threat. Like I said, like he's a toe dropper on sideline catches. So, I mean, he understands how to play and how to make good plays. The problem is, like I said, he just doesn't understand routes. He doesn't understand how to play at a higher level. He a lot of times I find that he's just kind of unaware. He finds himself just kind of out in the middle of space, and maybe, you know, looking at the ball, maybe not. And a lot of times he's just not in the place he needs to be to catch the ball. And that's a problem. You know, it's a problem because he's not the best route runner. And if he wants to be effective at the NFL level, he's going to have to be a better route runner. But right off the bat, in year 1, I think if we want to just use him as a red zone threat, I like him. And biggest question is going to be whether we're going to go with 6 wide receivers, and if we are going to go with 6 wide receivers, whether it's going to be Schweitzer or Aitman. Either way, I think he'll definitely be on the practice squad, and he'll probably play in the next few years once we kind of either lose Nelson, and not like this year obviously, but in the next few years once we kind of, the players we sign go to different teams. Anyway, I think that's going to be it. I might wrap a few more things up, but yeah, That's it. So, this is our overall draft class, 2018, Oakland Raiders. I would like to say that I love this draft class overall. There are picks that I'm not too fond of in terms of the value we got for them. Like, for instance, Colton Miller at 15 overall, I think was a little bit of a stretch. But in the general scheme of things, I don't think it's that bad of a pick. Mainly because we were able to get Maurice Hurst, Arden Key, and PJ Hall in like the order we were able to get them. If Maurice Hurst wasn't there for us in the 5th round, I don't think I would have liked this draft half as much, because we really needed some interior pass rush, and Arden Key, knock on wood, will be kind of the key that we need in the future in terms of outside pass rushing. And with these guys in the middle and him on the edge, I think our defense is going to be somewhat effective at getting to the quarterback, at least better than we have been. And we've been pretty good. Like with Khalil Mack, like, he's a beast, but he needs help, and he'll get it. And really, I mean, defense was our biggest need. So I guess in that sense, maybe we could have gone a little more defense heavy. But I understand the fact that Gruden wants to protect Eric Carr. He wants to protect our offensive line, give us good depth, and kind of good youth. We need guys for the future. We don't need guys for today and tomorrow, because he knows that guys like Penn, guys that have been kind of around for a while are going to start getting old, or they're going to want to go other places. I mean, we need kind of prototype, like for instance, we had Newhouse last year, Marshall Newhouse as our right tackle, and he sucked, to be honest with you. Like, we really were hurting because we didn't have a good right tackle. So if Colton Miller can be a starting right tackle and Donald Penn stays at left, then I don't know, I'm okay with it. It's alright. We have a starting player. The only thing I really wouldn't, well, I shouldn't say I wouldn't, because I'd like it, is if Brandon Parker starts at right tackle and Colton Miller doesn't start at left tackle. I really don't understand why we took him in the 1st round. That's just kind of the way my brain works. It's like, we need to have good value for the 1st round. He needs to be a starter, an every down starter. So I would like him to start at right tackle and play every down and actually be better than Marshall Newhouse. Then I'll kind of accept it and I'll be happy with it. Other than that, I don't really see any of these guys being like incredible players or being like the next, big thing, but I think that they're going to be definitely utility players that are going to be positional. They're going to have positional roles. Like, for instance, I said, like, Azim Victor is going to be like a run-stopping middle linebacker, maybe a 1st down linebacker, and that's it. And, I mean, that's fine for a 6th rounder. Maybe a guy that can learn to play more, all downs and will grow into a great middle linebacker. But he needs to stay good off the field, and that's, the main concern with a guy like him and a guy like Arden Key. It's, can they stay good off the field? And since, like I said, Key has Irvin kind of as a mentor, keeping him good off the field, and I think we can have an efficient pass rush and effective kind of leaders on defense, young leaders on defense, especially when you have a guy like Derek Johnson there that can teach these guys, teach a guy like Azim Victor how to play the position properly and how to stay clean off the field. Let's just be honest. Those are going to be the biggest problems with this draft. If these guys cannot stay good off the field, Arden Key and Azim Victor, and if Maurice Hurst's health kind of holds up and Nick Nelson can come back from the meniscus, which, I mean, I'm almost 90%, 99, 95% sure that, Nick Nelson's going to come back and he's going to start day one as our nickel cornerback. So to get him in the 4th round and then Maurice Hurst in the 5th, I would say that I love those 2 picks, and I think that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round was where we made our bread and butter this year, and everything else is basically just icing on the cake. Is like, look, we got five starters from this year's draft. 5. Last year we didn't really have one. How sad it is, right? Last year we didn't have one starting player. Although, like Gary and Conley, you could say he started. Not really. He was injured, and Vanderdoos played alright, but he wasn't. I wouldn't say was a starting caliber defensive tackle to take in the 3rd round. So, is this year better than last year's? Hands down. But I was scared. I was scared after the 1st round. I was scared after the 2nd round, and I'm like, I don't know who these guys are. I've never really done much research into these guys. But after I started looking at the tape, and I should say even after our 3rd round, Brandon Parker too. After looking at the tape, I kind of started to realize why we did what we did, and I'm okay with it. For people that don't like what we did, let me know why. Let me know what the big concerns you have with these guys and why you think they're not going to translate to the NFL. The only guys, like I said, I really have a problem with translating is going to be a guy like Arden Key and Azim Victor, and really it's just off the field issues. And Aitman really needs to learn how to run routes better, which can be taught. You can't teach speed, you can't teach size. Although Aitman doesn't have the speed, the best speed, his size is exceptional, and so is Colton Miller. That's another. You can't teach athleticism, you can't teach size, and you can't teach length, and that's what guys like Colton Miller have. That's what guys like Brandon Parker and Arden Key and Maurice Hurst. These guys have traits you can't teach. And so I think that in the end, they're going to be at least serviceable players, which is a lot more than we can say we got out of the last draft. So I'll chalk that down as a win. I don't know if I'll give it like a lot of people are giving it like a C grade. I don't know. I think it's more like a B plus. And if these guys turn out to be, if we turn out to get 5 starters from this draft, I give it an A. Now that's an if. Like I said, a tentative B plus, and if they don't turn out, then it is a C. But I think we can't be so harsh, so hasty to be like, oh, none of these guys are going to turn out. I think at least 3 or 4 of them are going to be starters in this league, and if not 5. So that's that. I'm gonna check out. Go Raiders, and I hope to see you all soon. Ciao.